So my paper is called From Subway to Table, and my paper deals with a possible solution to food deserts in some urban inner-city communities, specifically Rochester, New York. Rochester is the smallest city in the entire United States to have a subway. The subway was in operation from 1927 until 1956, when it was run to ground by General Motors. Since then, the subway has sat completely abandoned. Long derelict, no one has had any real idea of what to do with it. Possible solutions of what to do with the subway have been floated ever since the 1960s. A possible highway was proposed, an underground park. As late as 2013, people have been asking what to potentially do with it. But so far, none of it has come to fruition. Other problems facing the city have included a scarcity of decent food in impoverished communities. Impoverished communities, it is well known, have a higher crime rate than normal. Thus, many grocery stores and big box stores such as Walmart don't usually locate one of their centers in the middle of such neighborhoods. This leaves these people with a rather limited supply of food, mostly fast food. And let's be real, no one is ever going to qualify that as healthy food. So how does one marry the idea of the abandoned subway with food shortages? Well, a possible solution can be found in, of all places, London, England. In 2015, some Londoners came up with the idea of converting some of the derelict tunnels into self-contained greenhouses with hydroponic farming. These tunnels were converted and successfully, as it turned out, began to produce a surprising amount of salad greens. The salad greens were just to start with, since they are easily grown. London's tunnels were cleaned up, washed down, and painted, thus making them far cleaner and less derelict than they used to be. Irrigation was installed, along with ventilation leading up to the surface. And this was in London. The London Underground is far deeper than the one found in Rochester. Rochester's underground is basically right below street level. So ventilation for our subway would be of little issue. Electricity is already strung down there since the subway cars used to run on an overhead pantograph. Water storage, of course, would be of no issue. If there is one thing anyone who lives in Rochester can say, it is that there is no shortage of rain. The rain could be collected in overhead cisterns and simply, by the turn of a spigot, turn on the water and water the plants. The water would then naturally flow down the tunnel and end up in the river, much like it does today. The only potential difference with the Rochester subway is temperature control. 33 meters underground, the temperature remains fairly consistent. Here in Rochester, it wouldn't be much of a problem, though. Simply seal off the open ends of the tunnels and give a simple layer of foam insulation or even the soy-based insulation that is used in modern homes. And thus, you have the problem solved. In underground tunnels, another benefit is the lack of vermin that we would have to deal with. The only potential vermin facing a subway is rats, and those are easily controlled since they are much larger than an insect. Insects are the biggest burden and problem with traditional farming. Modern, power-efficient LED growing lights could be installed, which could be powered by solar panels above, thus making the tunnels completely green-friendly. As far as funding goes, MCC could participate, RIT could participate, the Cornell Extension could throw its hands in, and any number of charities, from churches to self-funded organizations, could do the job. Also, programs could be run where people could learn to actually grow things down there, which they could then take those skills and apply them in their own backyards. That leaves only distribution. Access points into the subway are in no short supply. Even full-size vehicles could be driven down into the tunnels for the pickups. Many of the poorer neighborhoods are located right on the spots where the tunnels exit out, the northern end of the city in particular, such as the 19th Ward. These areas could certainly use some access to decent food. For those that are less accessible, that are not near the tunnel entrances, not-for-profit organizations could run food trucks into such neighborhoods. Given that so many proposals have been laid forth for this abandoned subway, and let's be honest, an abandoned subway is not your everyday kind of structure. Given that everything else proposed and tried has either fallen through or failed, this is something that, since it would benefit so many communities, is something that should at the very least be tried. Everyone stands to gain from such a venture.